I was hired to patrol the deep-sea rig. Something is climbing up. You ever get so desperate for a paycheck you ignore every red flag? That's how I ended up alone on an oil rig in the middle of the Atlantic, 200 miles from the nearest landmass, patrolling endless steel corridors that creak like they're breathing. But on my second night, something strange started happening. Equipment vanished. Doors slammed. Alarms triggered with no source. Then I saw it, just a hand, webbed, pale and slick, gripping the outer ladder, climbing up from the sea. And that was only the beginning. I wasn't supposed to be here. I'm a security contractor, ex-military, discharged after an incident I don't talk about. Work's been dry since, until I got a call from a faceless offshore security agency. Said they needed a night patrol officer for a private petroleum operation off the North Atlantic shelf. 6 figures for 1 month. No questions asked. The catch? I'd be stationed completely alone. The rest of the rig was automated or inactive. Whatever that meant. Desperation dulls intuition. I signed without blinking. They flew me in by chopper. Midnight, freezing, with nothing but black sea in every direction. I remember how the oil rig looked as we approached. A rusted skeletal structure piercing the ocean, lights flickering against the fog, humming low like it was alive. The pilot didn't land, just hovered low enough for me to hop out, then vanished into the storm. I was completely alone. The first night was quiet, if you ignore the groaning metal and the shriek of wind through open ducts. I took my rounds like they asked, Dexa through D, power room, pump shafts, and helipad control. The place was empty, sure, but not dead. Screens blinked with static. Doors opened before I touched them. Occasionally, I'd hear a splash below, loud and unnatural. By 3 a.m., I was jumpy. I thought I saw something in the corner of the security monitor, a tall shape near the sub bay. But when I double-checked, the hallway was empty. The next morning, I reviewed the rig schematic. It was massive, 6 floors deep, 4 floors high, with several sections labeled decommissioned or under containment. Those areas were blocked by magnetic doors that required a level 7 clearance. I was level 2. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I tried to access the logs. Most files were corrupted or locked behind blacked-out credentials. But one folder had a name that stuck with me. Echo Current Anomaly 12B. I clicked it. Nothing but a timestamp. June 2nd, 2024, 3:13 a.m. And beneath that, an audio file named Last Descent. The file wouldn't play. That night, something changed. I was patrolling Deck B, right along the outer walkway, when I heard something scraping against the rig's hull. Long, slow, like claws against steel. At first, I thought it was a loose cable in the wind, but the noise followed me. I leaned over the railing with my flashlight and scanned the steel surface below. Nothing. Then, I saw it. A trail of wet, smeared prints, humanoid in shape, but too wide, too long. I followed it along the edge of the rig until I reached the maintenance ladder that descends down to the undersea piping, about 90 feet to the black surface of the ocean. There, just under the last rung, a hand, pale and slick, with membranes between its fingers. Its nails were sharp, yellow, crusted in barnacle. It twitched, then vanished into the blackness below with a gurgled splash. I staggered back, nearly dropping my light. Irradiod base. No response. The rig, like before, hummed. That morning, I found something waiting in the kitchen. One of the crew badges. Dusty. Bent. Name, Miguel Tran. Clearance level, 7. Status, expired. But that wasn't the disturbing part. The badge was wet, dripping onto the floor. Salt water. And behind it, written in something oily and dark on the cold steel wall, were the words, "Don't let it climb." I searched the files again. I found no record of a Miguel Tran. No reports. No emergency alerts. It was like he never existed. Later, I checked the ladder again. More prints now. Closer to the top. I contacted Central Security again. This time, a voice came through, distorted, robotic, too slow. Rig protocol. Under quarantine, do not descend. Then static. I began sealing hatches. Locking doors. I set up motion sensors. I even taped the camera over the outer ladder. But around 2:47 a.m., my monitor blinked. One motion alarm triggered from Deck F. The bottom. The deep water section. It had been sealed for years. I should have left. I know that. But something held me. It wasn't just fear. It was curiosity. I went down. Every level grew darker, damper, louder. The walls were slick with condensation. Lights flickered. Some buzzed like there was a frequency beneath the electricity, like whispers just at the edge of hearing. Then I reached the lower engine corridor. I expected cold steel and dead silence. What I saw instead made my blood freeze. The watertight door was open, bent outward, and something had left long, dripping footprints leading into the rig. I ran. As I climbed the levels, I passed another hallway where I swear something was watching me. Not from the shadows, from the ceiling. It hung there, half-cloaked in dripping black algae, its limbs long and too many, its face hidden, just rows of eyes blinking out of sync. And then it whispered, not a word, not a sentence, just my name. Lucas. How the hell did it know my name? I reached the security hub and locked every override I could find. I armed the emergency beacon. No signal, only static. And on the monitor, I saw something crawl past the window of the command room. The sea was still, but the rig was no longer empty. I sealed myself inside the command room, staring at the monitors, heart thudding like a drum. I watched as something slithered past the outer cameras, too big to be human, too fast to be a machine. It wasn't climbing up anymore. It was already here, and it was looking for me. I didn't sleep that night. Every noise echoed like footsteps. Every light flicker felt like breathing. I kept checking the camera feeds, jumping between views of shadowy halls and flickering pipes, but nothing showed again. Not until 5:33 a.m. The Deck A camera went black. Just static. Then Deck B. Then C. One by one, the feeds were dropping. Not all at once, but like something was testing the system. Crawling closer. Picking them off. By sunrise, only 2 cameras still worked. The one watching the ladder I came up from, and the one staring into the mess hall where I saw something I haven't forgotten since. A wet, open eye, about the size of a dinner plate, blinking in the darkness behind the supply crates. Then it turned, and the feed cut out. I kept trying the emergency signal. Still nothing. Either I was completely cut off from the outside world, or someone wanted me to be. Around midday, I stepped out of the command room to grab food from the galley. The hall was dead silent. I moved slow, flashlight drawn, trying not to breathe too loud. As I reached the doorway to the galley, I noticed something strange. Water. Salt water. Pooled across the floor. Not a leak. This was different. The water pulsed faintly, like it had a heartbeat. At first, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. Then I looked up. Something had scrawled symbols all across the ceiling in black sludge. I don't know the language, if it even is a language, but it made my head hurt to look at it. Curved lines, spirals, an eye carved into every wall. And in the center of the mess hall, the wet remains of a diving suit. But it was inside out. The name tag? Miguel Tran. My breath caught in my throat. The same badge I'd found 2 days ago. Except this wasn't old. It was fresh. Vet. Reeking of sea rot. The helmet was shattered like something burst out from within. I staggered back, heart racing. Then the sound came again, the one I dreaded most. Clank, clank, clank. Footsteps, metal on metal. Not from a corridor, no. From under the floor. Like something was moving through the ventilation shafts, crawling through the infrastructure. I backed away, turned to run. Boom! A vent burst open behind me. Steam hissed. I caught just a glimpse, elongated limbs, translucent flesh, eyes like pearls, blind but moving. Then it vanished again. I sprinted back to the command room, locked it down. I had one plan left. Use the dead crew badge. Miguel Trans. Level 7 access. I wasn't supposed to, but I needed answers. That night, I went to the restricted deck. Deck F. The lowest habitable part of the rig, once used for submarine operations. I used Miguel's badge. The lock turned green with a hiss. The smell hit me first, brine, rot, and rusted iron. Lights flickered, revealing narrow corridors and old pressure doors. Everything down here felt wrong. The walls curved slightly inward, and they were warmer, like they were alive. I reached an old control room. Dust-coated. Panels were cracked and half buried under moss. But the computer still glowed. I accessed the archive logs. The screen blinked once. Echo Current Research Log, number 48, June 2nd, 2024. It played. A man's voice filled the room, grainy and panicked. Initial breach occurred during sonar mapping. We didn't mean to open it. It was supposed to be dormant. We tapped the wrong trench. Found a cavern under the seabed, but there was something living in it. Something old. Too old. Miguel's gone. Swallowed whole. Davis shot himself. The water, it listens. It talks back. We tried to burn it. The heat only made it breed faster. I can hear it now. Crawling in the pipes. Climbing. Always climbing. We should have never descended. If you hear this, seal the rig. Flood it. Don't let it reach the surface. End of log. I just stared at the screen, numb. This wasn't just a rig. It was a prison. They were keeping something trapped beneath the seabed. And I think they failed. I tried to leave, but the corridor was flooded, ankle-deep salt water bubbling up from the drain. I turned back, retracing my steps to the emergency ladder shaft. But as I opened the door, I saw a body, floating midair, limbs dangling. It was a man, face bloated, skin peeled. His eyes were gone, but he was smiling, and then I heard it again, whispering, this time not from my mind, but from the walls. Lucas, Lucas. You opened the door. I don't know how I made it back to the upper deck. Everything was flickering, alarm lights blaring with no sound. Red pulses across endless shadow. Doors slamming behind me like the rig itself was trying to trap me. I burst back into the command room and slammed it shut. And then the radio crackled. A voice. Soft. Static-laced. Lucas, come in. We've been trying to reach you. It was the company. Finally. You must not allow it to reach the extraction pipe. Containment failed. Do you understand? I shouted, demanding evacuation, answers, anything. But the voice just repeated, you must not allow it to climb. And then the feed cut again. I stared at the monitor. The camera, aimed at the substructure ladder, showed a figure climbing out of the sea. Not rushing, not struggling, just climbing. Smooth, intentional. And behind it, down in the dark water, more shapes. I think it's calling them. I think it's waking the rest. The thing that climbed out of the sea wasn't human. It had no face, no mouth, but it breathed. You could hear it, like wet lungs dragging through oil. I watched from the monitor as its fingers, long, boneless, gripped the edge of the platform and pulled it up, inch by inch. And then it turned, as if it knew I was watching. It looked directly into the camera. And it smiled. I stayed locked inside the command room for what felt like hours. Outside, the rig groaned and shifted like something was pressing against it from all sides. The wind had stopped. No waves, just silence, and a low, distant thrum, like the beat of something alive. There was no protocol for this. No training. The voice on the radio hadn't returned. I was alone, but I wasn't alone on the rig, and something was moving through the pipes. It started with a hum, a deep, rhythmic vibration that pulsed through the metal walls, subsonic, almost beneath hearing range. It made my teeth ache and my nose bleed faintly. The lights flickered with each pulse. I switched between camera feeds, hoping for a glimpse of the thing I'd seen climbing. Some of the cameras were still down, just static, but one on deck C had power again. I watched, breath shallow. There was something moving between the catwalks. Not just one, several, lurking in the shadows. Slender shapes, wet and twitching, ducking in and out of view. They weren't in a hurry. They were spreading out, exploring, or searching. For me, I needed to get out. Escape pod, maybe? The rig had two. One on the south platform, one welded shut after the last inspection. I knew the path, but I'd have to go through Deck D to reach the launch bay. I waited until the movement on the monitors slowed, then grabbed the flashlight and crowbar. The hallway outside was dark and humid. I swear I could hear whispering again, but it wasn't in my head. It was in the walls. Tiny voices, speaking in a language I couldn't understand. And every time I passed a vent, I felt something watching. Deck D was colder than the rest. The overhead lights buzzed, casting long, sickly yellow shadows across the floor. As I walked, I passed pipes that were now pulsing, expanding and contracting like lungs. One of them was leaking, not water, but a black, viscous liquid that smelled like rotting seaweed and iron. Then I heard again, a splash, something wet, dragging itself around the corner. I ducked into a maintenance room and killed my flashlight. I held my breath. Through the slits in the door, I saw it. A humanoid shape, maybe 7 feet tall, hunched low. Its skin was translucent, like thick jellyfish flesh, with barnacles embedded across its back. Its arms ended in nothing. No fingers, just tendrils like sea anemones, constantly twitching. And where its head should have been, just a mass of eyes. Unblinking, rolling. It stopped, tilted. It knew I was nearby. It began clicking, fast and sharp like a crab tapping glass. Then it moved on. I waited 10 full minutes before I slipped out. I reached the escape pod hatch. Dead. The panel had been ripped open, wires frayed and sizzling. Something had disabled it. I checked the backup generator room. Maybe if I could route auxiliary power, I could trigger the secondary launch. The room was open, but something had already been there. The floor was coated in skin. Not blood, not flesh. Skin, peeled, stripped, hung like seaweed from the ceiling. My stomach turned. I was about to leave when I noticed something scratched into the wall, deep gouges, as if from fingernails. Don't listen to the pipes. Suddenly, the radio crackled. Lucas! That voice again. Soft. Calm. Come downstairs. It's okay now. We just want to talk. My skin went cold. Because the radio was off. I hadn't touched it. The voice wasn't from the speaker. It was coming from the vent. I turned just in time to see a slick tentacle retreat inside. I ran. I didn't care about protocol. Didn't care about clearance or containment. I sprinted back to the command room, but the hallway leading to it was gone. Not blocked. Gone. A solid wall of smooth, wet metal stood in its place, like the rig had shifted its own architecture. Panic set in. I turned back, found a maintenance shaft, and started climbing. Ladders. Stairs. Through bulkheads. Through hissing steam and shadows. At one point, I found a journal, stuffed inside a locker on Deck B. It belonged to Miguel Tran. The last entry read, "They say the rig is alive." that we open something that shouldn't exist. A consciousness that isn't flesh or machine. It's sound, vibration, thought. It echoes through the ocean like sonar. It's not just climbing up, it's learning us. I finally made it to the weather tower, a tall, skeletal spire above the main platform. Long forgotten, but with a separate comms line. I climbed to the top and booted the auxiliary terminal. The signal was weak but alive. I transmitted an emergency beacon on all channels, screaming coordinates and warnings until my throat bled. For a second, silence. Then a voice. Message received. Extraction en route. Estimated arrival, 12 hours. 12 hours. I slumped against the wall in relief. But then, something echoed up the ladder shaft beneath me. Top! 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 Too fast to be footsteps. Too slow to be dripping water. And then I heard it again. That voice. Except now, it sounded just like mine. Lucas, come down. We've missed you. I grabbed the crowbar and backed against the window, staring down at the ocean. There were lights beneath the surface. Hundreds of them. Not mechanical. Not electrical. Eyes. All opening at once. The rig isn't just haunted. It's waking up. The rescue signal had been sent. I thought I'd won. I thought I could wait it out in the tower, 12 hours of silence, and I'd be free. But when I woke up, there were footprints on the walls. Something had been in the room with me, and written in fog across the glass. You're already below. There are things the ocean keeps hidden. Things older than bones, hungrier than time. We built a rig over something that should have stayed buried. And now it's trying to become us. 12 hours left became 10, then 6. But the deeper I listened, the less I trusted the voice on the radio. The longer I stayed here, the more I realized something horrifying. This rig doesn't trap you. It absorbs you. The tower wasn't safe anymore. I woke up cold, heart pounding. I had fallen asleep holding a crowbar, flashlight still on. But the light was dim now, weak. The battery drained or fed on. A trail of wet footprints led to the window. Up the wall, across the ceiling, back down to the floor, and then vanished. There were no doors open, no broken glass, nothing in the feed, but something had watched me sleep and left a message. In the condensation on the window, scrawled backwards. You are already below. I stared, wiped it away with a trembling hand. And that's when I noticed there was no reflection. Not in the glass. Not in the camera. I wasn't casting one anymore. I left the tower. Didn't care where I was going. Just away from the lies, the whispers, the staring eyes and the walls. The rig moaned beneath my feet, the metal creaking like old bones under pressure. I climbed down to the lower decks, areas long abandoned, where machinery was rusted shut and time didn't flow right. Each hallway felt too long, like the space had stretched. My legs ached after only 10 steps. One corridor was flooded ankle deep with thick black water. I could hear faint singing. No words, just a cold, rhythmic hum like a lullaby for the dead. I passed old crew quarters, their doors wide open, beds still made, food trays untouched and moldless, like time here had stopped mid-breath. On one wall, someone had written in oil, "Do not trust the extraction." The next room had something worse. Photos, dozens of them, nailed to the walls. Faces of every worker who'd ever served here. All of them altered, eyes missing, mouths replaced by wide, gaping voids. As if whatever lived below had tried to understand what we were by copying us. Badly. The intercom blared again. "Lucas, we're almost there. You're doing well. Just stay calm." But the voice wasn't right anymore. It was mine, pitched slightly higher, mocking, repeating back everything I'd said over the last few hours, stitched together in the same rhythm, but not the same meaning. It wasn't trying to help. It was trying to delay me. And then came the worst part. A video feed turned on by itself. Kamera 13. Engineering shaft. It showed a man, me, crawling through a tunnel, face half torn, moving like a puppet, dragging something behind him. Something that looked like my shadow, but moved the wrong way. I ran, back up the shaft, past old breakers, past rusted storage lockers. That's when I saw her. A woman in a yellow raincoat. The engineer I saw in the photo logs. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. She reached for me, and then her face collapsed inward, sucked into itself like a sinkhole. Behind her, the wall opened. Not a door, just metal folding like skin, revealing a tunnel of flesh, pulsing and wet. It smelled like brine and rot. Inside, I saw stars. Not sky, not space, just depth. An endless drop made of nothing but memory and pressure. That's when I realized this wasn't just an infection. This wasn't a creature from the deep. The rig had merged with something that lived in the ocean's mind, something that could bend reality and self. It didn't want to kill me. It wanted me to join it. I made it to the generator chamber, flicked every switch, triggered a full power surge, and in that moment, all the lights on the rig turned red. Every door locked, and I saw them, the shapes crawling out of the maintenance grates. Not just one, not dozens, hundreds, writhing, dripping, bone-white things with human eyes stolen from the crew. They started moving upward toward the tower, toward the beacon. I had given them a way out, and the radio whispered, clear as day now, "Good job, Lucas. Now they know you're here. We just needed a signal. We can use you now. Thank you." I collapsed to the floor, breathing heavy, because I finally understood. I was never hired to patrol the rig. I was bait. The rig didn't call for help. It called for food. They told me extraction was coming. They said I just had to wait. But now, the tower's red with warning lights. Something's moving in the air vents. And outside in the deep black water, hundreds of glowing eyes are looking up. Because I didn't send out a distress signal. I lit a beacon for them to rise. I was hired to patrol the deep sea rig. A simple job. Solitude. Good pay. But what I found here isn't man-made. It's not even alive in the way we understand life. This structure, this place, it's a vessel for something older than memory. Now it's awake, and it wants me. I try to destroy the beacon. After what I saw in the generator chamber, those creatures climbing up like insects toward a light, I realized the emergency signal wasn't summoning rescue. It was a lure, a signal not for people, but for the things down below. I sprinted toward the central relay, hammer in hand, ready to smash the control board. But when I got there, the room was already open, lights flickering, a cold wind where there should be none, and in front of the controls, me, standing perfectly still, same uniform, same face, but with no eyes, just empty, dark sockets. It turned to me slowly, smiled with my lips, and said, "Don't you understand yet, Lucas? You were never sent here to patrol. You were sent here to merge." Then it charged. We fought, desperately. It moved like it was floating, body twitching, joints bending too far. Every time I struck it, it would vanish for half a second in a burst of mist and static, then reform beside me. It wasn't physical in the way a person was. It was a manifestation, a perfect imitation of me, except it knew how I fought, how I thought, and every time I screamed, it echoed the sound back with 10 voices, mine, the engineers, the crew, the ones that had vanished into the sea. Finally, I threw the breaker, lit the entire relay room in white-hot energy. It vanished, but only for now. My leg was bleeding. Bad. I limped through the upper deck, watching the monitors glitch with images of faces staring through the walls. Sometimes they were mine. Sometimes they were still moving after the feed cut. I locked myself in the communications array and rewired the beacon. Changed the signal. Masked the pulse. Turned it into a warning. Stay away. Do not dock. The rig is alive. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. A reply came through. Shortwave. Static filled. Extraction denied. Crew not accounted for. Confirm you are still you. That line hit harder than anything else. Even the people outside didn't trust one was human anymore. And deep inside me, a voice whispered, "They're right not to." Suddenly, claxons wailed. A siren I hadn't heard before. Hull breach. Lower decks. Pressure rising. The things that climbed had reached the foundations. And now they were inside. I watched the feed. Their bodies moved like water. They mimicked human gestures, salutes, waves, head tilts, as if trying to learn us. Some still wore faces. Half-melted crew members stretched over translucent skulls. And they were heading upward, room by room, deck by deck. I had one last choice. There was a submersible in the maintenance bay. Old, but still functional. I hobbled down stairwells, tripping over bent pipes and twitching hands that reached for vents. The rig shook around me, metal groaning like it was in pain. In the maintenance corridor, I found the old diver's suit, patched and yellowed. Someone had scratched the words, "You can leave, but IT won't." I reached the sub, booted the system. 30% oxygen. Enough. Just as the creatures reached the deck, I sealed the hatch and launched. I descended, not up. I had to know the truth. Had to see what had birthed them. The deeper I went, the darker the ocean became. Not because of light, but because of presence. It was like diving into a mind that didn't want to be known. And at the bottom, where the rig's anchor cables buried into the seabed, I saw it. A living mass. Not a creature. Not a city. A memory given shape. Shifting, whispering, digesting thoughts and DNA into something new. The rig hadn't found it. It had grown around it, fed by every soul that walked its halls. I sent one final signal. Encoded. Cryptic, just in case someone else heard it one day. Then I did the only thing I could do. I opened the submersible's outer hatch and let the deep in. I don't remember surfacing, but I woke up on shore, eyes full of salt, mouth tasting like rust. A boat crew found me wandering a harbor miles from the nearest oil station. They took me in, checked me, asked my name. I told them, "Lucas." They nodded, but they didn't smile. One of them leaned in and whispered, "That's the same name the last 5 survivors gave." I'm not sure if I made it back. Not really. I still see things and reflections that don't match my movement. I still hear my own voice whispering things I didn't say. And some nights, when I sleep, I dream I'm still on the rig, climbing up, because maybe you don't leave the rig leaves through you.